Yo, Stover here. So, in our last video, we discussed the ribosomes, which we can see them located here on the endoplasmic reticulum. This whole blue section is endoplasmic reticulum. But what makes this stand out from this is that this has a rough look to it, and this has a smooth look to it. So we distinguish them by saying that this is the rough ER and that this is the smooth ER. Now, endo means in, plasmic means plasm, right? So it's in the plasm or in the cytoplasm, right? Just basic. And then reticulum means kind of a network, interconnected. And so we see that kind of a network, folded network in here. And so let's go through what the rough ER actually does. Okay, so its structure is it has ribosomes on the surface. Remember, ribosomes are created inside of the nucleolus and shipped out, right? And so those ribosomes attach either to the rough endoplasmic reticulum or they float around in the cytoplasm itself, right? But the rough ER has ribosomes on the surface. It hugs the nucleus, so it is staying close to the nucleus, closer than the smooth ER. The smooth ER is the farthest away from the nucleus, out of the endoplasmic reticulum. And its job is to make proteins. It has many, many jobs, storage, different things like that. But we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But it makes proteins. That's the job of the rough ER. When I'm talking about rough ER, when I'm talking about making proteins, we are going to talk about packaging them up for secretion. So it makes proteins out of these ribosomes, right? And these proteins serve various purposes. They could be defensive proteins like antibodies. They could be communication proteins, enzyme proteins that break down food so that we could digest it better. They could be transport proteins or storage proteins or structure proteins like collagen, hemoglobin, testosterone, estrogen. These different things are proteins. And remember when I said we package them up for secretion? Now, on this next slide, it's going to be reminiscent of when we talked about proteins, when we were talking about macromolecules. Because when the rough ER packages up the proteins, they're going to package them in, and yes, it is in the eukaryotic cells. They are, rough endoplasmic is in the eukaryotic cells, but not in the prokaryotic cells. So let's look at this, though, when we're talking about packaging up the proteins. So the proteins get packaged up in a couple different ways. When we talked about proteins, when we were talking about macromolecules, we talked about the 4 different types of protein structures: the primary structure, the secondary structure, and the tertiary structure, and the quaternary structure. Now, depending upon the structure of the protein, you are going to have the type of job that that protein does, right? So if it is more defensive, it'll probably be made more of a primary structure, maybe some secondary structure bent in. But we're talking about that function is going to dictate or be dictated by form. Function is dictated by form. So let's do a quick summary real quick. Rough ER, endoplasmic reticulum, has ribosomes on the surface. It hugs the nucleus. Its job is to make proteins and package them for secretion or to be sent out of the cell or used in the cell for the purposes they are formed for. Hopefully that helped.